My neighbor was a quiet old man. Until the FBI showed up at his door, I never paid much attention to Mr. Thompson. He was the kind of neighbor who kept to himself, polite but distant, lived alone in the same small house for as long as I could remember. No family ever visited, no friends, nothing. Just a quiet old man who spent his afternoons sitting on his porch, watching the world go by. I'd wave at him occasionally and he'd nod back. That was the extent of our relationship. Until one morning, everything changed. I was getting ready for work when I noticed the black SUVs rolling onto our street. Unmarked, tinted windows, at least 6 of them. My first thought? Some kind of drug bust. I watched from my window as nearly a dozen men in tactical gear stepped out. Then I saw where they were going. Mr. Thompson's house. They surrounded his front door, weapons drawn. One of them pounded on it and shouted, "FBI! Open up! FBI!" What the hell? I expected Mr. Thompson to come out confused, maybe scared. But what happened next shook me to my core. The door didn't open. Instead, I heard a deep, steady voice from inside. "Took you long enough." And then, boom! A controlled detonation. The FBI blew the door off its hinges and stormed inside. For a few minutes, all I heard was shouting. Then they walked him out, wrists cuffed behind his back. But here's the part that still gives me chills. Mr. Thompson wasn't scared. He wasn't shouting, crying, or even resisting. He walked out like a man who had been expecting this moment for years. He even smirked. I locked eyes with him for just a second, and he nodded at me, like we were sharing some inside joke. I didn't go to work that day. How could I? My neighbor, the quiet old man I'd barely spoken to, had just been taken away by the FBI. A few days later, the rumors started flying. Some said he was a retired assassin. Others claimed he was an ex-spy who had been in hiding. The most insane theory? He was connected to a string of bank heists from the 1980s. I needed answers. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I searched his name. And that's when I learned the truth. Mr. Thompson didn't exist. No records, no past, nothing. But buried in an old news archive, I found a grainy black and white photo from 1979. It showed a younger man standing beside a high-profile politician. The caption, "Unidentified man believed to be involved in Cold War espionage." And he looked exactly like my neighbor. So yeah, I never saw Mr. Thompson again. But every time I step outside, I can't help but wonder, was he really just an old man living out his final years? Or had I spent years living next to someone far more dangerous than I ever realized?